Hello everyone, welcome back to another tactic test video. This one is going to be a request that we got last video for the 343 Columbus tactic review, and this one is for Callum Bentley. I know he requested a Chelsea tactic, so we've put one together for you, my friends. You can see on the side here. Sadly, I will say, it doesn't seem to work the best in-game at times. I'll show you what I did. I tested with Juve and with Chelsea, as the 3-4-3 was employed at Juve for Conte as well as at Chelsea, while at Inter he played a 3-5-2, so I felt it would be better to use those two teams. Now, one, it could be said that it doesn't totally fit both sides, but it just doesn't seem to work, and I do think that's down to the high lines, the high press and high line being so important this year's game, and us not playing it, and us playing wide, which doesn't seem to work very well in the game as well. So I don't know. I don't think this tactic, unfortunately, seems to work too particularly well in the game. Again, though, I've only tested it with two sides. Neither of them actually play inherently a 3-4-3, and I think it would be interesting to see if people do play this with a team that they build for the tactic. I would be interested to see how it works. But again, this was built off a team of Conte's 3-4-3 when he won the league, so it might just be more so because of that. But this is, in essence, for me, I feel the best representation of this tactic. And unlike Columbus Crew's team, which won it and is most recent, this is a little different. So we'll see, but I'm very happy with the tactic. I really like what it is, and I'm really happy how all the roles worked out. And we'll explain all that in a little more. We won't really have any in-game stuff to show you guys, because that's not really like what we're going to talk about as much. It's more going to be talking about some of the real-life stuff and how the team set up and what they did and how we mirrored that in the tactic. So we'll talk about more of that. But I hope you guys are excited to get into it. I know I am. And off to the tactics board where we can get things started. Alright guys, so we're at the tactics board. I first want to start off by talking about the team in general that Conte had. So this was definitely not like the most common team. So there's some roles in this that people are kind of stuck into because of how they played, and he got stuff out of them for each of them. So mainly, it was Courtois in goal. Gary Cahill played the left center back role. David Luiz played the central center back role. Azpilicueta played the right center back role. You then had Victor Moses playing the right wing back. Marcos Alonso at the left wing back. You had Nemanja Matić at the left center mid, Kanté at the right center mid. You had Pedro on the right, Diego Costa up top, and Hazard on the left. So those were the players generally that played in the system, and those are the 11 players that I based each role off of to make this tactic. So that was the lineup that I went with. Now, when Conte played, he normally had the team set up in a 2-1-2-4-1 formation. So that mainly would look like this. So you would have the wingers playing more narrow. You would have the wingbacks overlapping. You'd have these guys a little higher up here, and then on top of that, you'd have David Luiz stepped up into this space. So you'd have the ability to create this shape here. So it would look something like this. Is when they played a lot more of kind of this shape here was usually what you saw, as well as the fact that the main ball player was usually Azpilicueta, who was the one given the main priority of taking the ball out of the back. So he was given the main characteristic of doing it. And this was generally what the shape would look like when they did this stuff. Now, usually the ball would go into here and then into here, where Matic would then do stuff with it, or David Luiz would have it and maybe ping balls into this space here. But rarely the ball would travel through Conte. It would be Azpilicueta out wide to Moses or to Pedro if he could. If not, it would be into David Luiz and then usually across the left or direct into Matic there. Rarely did the ball go into Conte and out to one of these guys, and rarely did it go to Gary Cahill and then back out to their side. It was usually Azpilicueta to David Luiz, and then he could kind of pick his pass and go different places, or Azpilicueta could hit kind of longer switches. But usually that's what, from that look, we saw in terms of the build-up there for that. So that leads into why we have a ball-playing defender on the right side and a central defender on the left side, as well as Libero in the middle. So that's kind of why those things were done in those roles. Now, obviously one of the things that happens with this shape, especially in attack, is because the wingbacks here would go wide, it allowed the wingers to tuck in more. Now, when the wingers tucked in more, you obviously are creating space and you're creating overloads, and that's kind of the big thing with this tactic that Conte tried to do, was create overloads in the defensive areas and against defenses. So that's kind of the big thing that we are looking for to be created in this. So obviously, if we do look at the way this is done, just going to set up a back four here. So if we have a back four like that, if you guys see here, because obviously we'll move this into the attacking thirds, we're going to start talking about the attack. Leave the ball behind. So this would be in the attacking third. This is what you'd be seeing. So they would come up against the back four and almost always have overloads. And that's kind of the key thing, is there's always overloads in these areas. If the back four like this, the striker will be free, or an opposite-sided wing back, or the wingers will be free. So usually that's kind of going to be the opposite side of the ball. So if they have the ball on this side, usually they'll be aggressor here. Maybe they might push two, and that means everyone slides over a bit or something like that. But usually because of this, they'll almost always be a free man, which is the big thing with this system. Now, when teams did play 5, what would happen then is Matic would step higher, and Luiz would then occupy the space Matic had, and the team would look more like this, in more of a 2-2-5-1 shape, or a 2-2-1-4-1 shape, where Matic would then be helping create that overload against that 5 in the back as well. So those were kind of the ideas that Conte used in terms of attack, and based off of that, we've made that system that way. Now, the only thing I will say is that Matić is a DLP in the system, because he mainly played in that deeper lying playmaking role, but that's one thing, obviously, that the tests don't show, is that if you were to play against a low block, or not getting the ball into the third enough when using this, you need to make Matić, or that left center mid role, into an advanced playmaker, because they will then have the ability to step higher up the pitch, move forwards more, and make more advanced plays from that area, as well as you need to then encourage your wingback to get high. You're not your wingback, your libero to step higher up as well because of it. So those are two things you have to do that in the tactic test wasn't done, but in real life you can do to help win those games that you need to when you're in trouble. Over the mentality switch, you're going to adjust those individual positions. So that's one thing to do as well that you need to take care of. So just a heads up there when it comes to how you implement that into the tactic itself. Now, one of the big things, sorry, I have lots of notes. I'm going through all of them. Just checking, I just lost the spot of where I was. So, one of the other things as well that this was done is because Matić would step up and move into these spaces here, it allowed David Luiz to get into areas here where he could take shots. So he can take shots from distance. So obviously, if David Luiz is a one-of-a-kind player, let's be honest here. Very one-of-a-kind. But because of that, you can also get, if you find a similar player, feel free to put him in that role. I have shoot more often on the libero to replicate David Luiz. Feel free to take that off. But it's one of those things because we're replicating the tactic that is on there, and that's going to be important. So because of that, it allowed the libero to even get up in these positions and have shots. Now, if you guys watch any of my Thon on Evian save, you will know Dieng, who plays as our main libero for us in our system, has scored a few goals from shots outside the box. So it definitely does work this year with libero stepping up to the edge of the box and shooting at a back three. So it definitely does happen. So I would 100% encourage that if you can find a player that will, or maybe convert a 6 into a libero, and they'll be able to do that for you. So obviously we're talking about the overloads. Now, mainly when it came to getting the ball out wide, there was two kinds of attacks that we'd mainly see from these defenders. We're going to take away these guys. We don't need to talk about the overloads anymore. So the main types of attacks we'd see is the player would drive kind of towards the line here. Now, they would look for two kinds of crosses. Usually, Costa would line himself up in the middle of the box, and the wingers would be kind of in these areas like this. They'd kind of set up along like this. This guy would be here to collect the cross if it went over. Now, there'd be three types of crosses this player is going to look for. The cutback to the winger nearest him, the clipped ball to the 9 in the middle, or low one, or driven across goal for a tap it at the back post by the opposite side of the winger. Those were kind of the three main crosses that you'd see from these guys. We have low crosses on for that reason, because it's going to keep the ball lower and mainly keep it for those cutbacks. But that's one of the big things that we'd see in terms of the way they attacked and they looked to get those crosses in, was those three were the main types of crosses that you would get from this Chelsea side. And it also would be big because Costa drew in a lot of defenders because he's a big body, he's very good in the air. So because of that, it let these two have a lot more freedom to move around in the box and find space to be found by these cutbacks. This also will lead to your wingbacks having more assists and these guys having more goals. But these guys can also have more goals as they might do the same exact thing. As well as the fact that we have our wingers on complete wingbacks so they can roam from position and even exchange. So sometimes you might see it where the winger is the one driving down to the line, and then the wingback here is in this position for the cutback as well. So that could happen in the time as well, and that's what we're looking to recreate as well with this system. Now, yeah, so the two could almost swap positions. Generally, when the team was attacking, though, the main spaces of attack from the players would be in terms of attacking various channels of play. So we've talked about channels before. I'll draw some lines just to show you guys what channels we're looking at. So I'll add some defenders as well so you can see. So that's actually, let's make this a different color so you guys can see this a little easier. Do red. So we have a channel here, here. Sorry, these are not perfect lines, even though it could be pretty perfect. Okay, so those are the channels there. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about with the defenders as well, because that will help you guys get a better understanding on top of that. So, in terms of the attacking the channels, each player in the attack out of these 5 players here would be attacking a different channel in attack. And that was one of the big things as well with the attack of these channels. So, the wingbacks would attack this wide channel here. So this space here was the channel they would mainly attack in. The wingers would attack this channel, which was the space in between the center back and the outside back. So that was the main one they attacked there, trying to get into this space here, pulling a player to them, leaving space in the middle for the 9 who would attack the central channel. Now the central channel was also backed up by Matic and Luiz, who would be a part of the central channel for passes as well. If you'd pass back here, they could then pass to the 9 in this central channel. Now, that was mainly what we're looking for there. The wingers, though, did have license to drift into this central channel and even exchange positions or help create overloads by drifting all the way over to this one and creating a 2v1 in that scenario as well. The wingbacks could even drift inside and exchange with the wingers, allowing them to attack the central channel or even doubling up in these central channels with these two together here, these two here instead. So those are kind of the main things that would happen. And usually interchange would only occur one channel next to you. So the striker would only really drift into these channels. These guys would drift into these ones here. And the wingbacks only drift into the channel here. So that's kind of what would happen, is they would drift into those different channels to attack at different points, creating overloads in those areas or going into those spots to pull more defenders away, creating more space for other players in other channels. And that was kind of the big thing, was these overloads, pulling people in and out of position with freedom of movement, creating more space in those channels to attack. Hazard had the most freedom of movement out of any player in the attack, though, and you could see him popping up all the way over here at times, or even in the middle. So he is roam from position on, so he'll find himself anywhere he wants to find the ball in possession. And he was encouraged to take shots from anywhere and dribble by people as much as he wanted to. So he was kind of the guy, you give him the ball, run buck wild, do whatever the fuck you want, Hazard, because you're amazing and you can just beat people out of nowhere, score a goal from nothing. So on top of this, obviously we talked about the focal points as well. The other one, which is a big one, I think we can also talk about, is Kanté. Now, Kanté is on a ball winner. He is just, literally his whole job is that so when the ball's moving around and stuff, the first, obviously, inclination is get the ball wide to the wingbacks. We want to get it wide to those guys. They'll do their thing. And then they try to bring it inside. Once they get into this kind of final third area here, so this area of the pitch, let's actually do this instead. Let's do a red box, shall we? Show you guys what I'm talking about. So once they kind of got into this area of the pitch here, this is the final third that they were looking to start bringing the ball inside more. So if they couldn't get down the outside, they'd bring a ball inside here, where Matic would take up positions and try to find that killer ball to break the defensive line. Now, if they say they lost the ball in this scenario, we'll bring a 6 in. Kanté's job now was to hound them for the ball. Counter press immediately, try to close it down and intercept the ball would be his big role, so that he'd allow these players to then start getting back in position and help defend in that 5-4-1 shape they would like to defend in. Because Hazard, Matic, and Pedro were not big defenders. Costa would put in a challenge here and there, but you mainly wanted to get the back five back into possession. And Kanté would then step up, be aggressive, and try to win the ball back, or just intercept the ball as well, which is another big thing he did. That's why he's on a ball-winning midfielder on support role, so he's the freedom to run around like a lunatic, win the ball back, and then create another attack for you guys. And that's kind of the big thing that his job was to do. So he'd go, just run all over the place, like just lunatic. And he'd win a ball back. I don't know why I just thought of Patrick when I did that, from SpongeBob when he does the battle cry. Not that it was a battle, I don't know why that popped into my head. But I always think of that when people run around like a lunatic, was Patrick's battle cry. You can learn into the weird mind of myself. And then finally, we're talking about Diego Costa. For him, he was more of a target forward or a deep lying forward, dropping in to get the ball and laying it off. I felt he's more of a deep lying forward in game. That's up to you if you want to change to a target man as well. I think both roles would suit him in this system. But I felt that he would drop in a little more, offer some support in terms of laying the ball off to Matic or Hazard, and then moving into the box a little later on. I felt that he wasn't always as high up. He could drop in and assist at times, which is where I felt the deep lying forward lended itself more to that. But I felt he was on attack more over support, because he wasn't always looking to support the attack by being that focal point to pass off of all the time. He did it a bit, but also tried to make movement for himself, which is why I feel deep lying forward on attack suits him much more perfectly. Now, when it came to defending, this team would defend in a mid-block. So they would usually, if they lost the ball, they'd look to drop into this mid-block shape. This would allow time to get all the players back. The wingbacks get back, the wingers get back, and they'd create this 5-4-1 shape. And they would create this shape here. Luiz would be a little more advanced, allowing him to step up onto the 10. Now, what this shape did is that it allowed these guys to pick up and more accurately track different kinds of runners, as well as deal with other types of teams. Now, one of the big things that this let them do was deal, one, with teams trying to create overloads against them, deal with the 4-3-3 very, very well, and deal with the 4-2-3-1, but mainly 4-3-3, which is the big kind of tactic being used commonly at this time. So, what would happen is that usually David Luiz would deal with the 10 or the 9. Normally, though, we'll assume they played 4-3-3, which is very common for this day. What would happen is that you'd have Costa deal with the 6. He'd put pressure on the 6. Kanté would deal with this guy. Matches would deal with that guy. The David Luiz would deal with the striker. The wingbacks would then force the opposite wingers to be into Cahill and Azpilicueta. We don't need this box. They would then deal with them. And then the wingers would then be dealt with by the wingbacks. And they'd be able to defend like this. They'd be able to defend with these guys here, these guys in these areas. And that also would allow them to create defensive overloads. Obviously, Hazard and Pedro weren't the greatest defenders, but they could then help out and support a little bit like this, or even tuck inside and help defend in these areas, cutting off passes here. They weren't the greatest defenders, but this allowed them to have a much less responsibility in defense, and it allowed these guys to do much more on the offensive side and put a lot more effort into that over defending. And that was kind of the big thing. Because they sat in this mid-block, because they tried to force them a little wider in this mid-block as well, looking to force the team to go wide where they could then have more overloads through using the wingers to help support them, they're able to defend a lot easier and take a lot of the responsibility off players like Hazard and Pedro, where in the beginning of the season they really, really struggled, especially after the Arsenal defeat, where a few times in that game they got caught out with players like Bellerin and others getting in behind because Hazard or Pedro wasn't picking them up, which even led to them losing the game thanks to the Walcott goal. Now, obviously, this is known as the game where everything changed when they lost to Arsenal, but that's a great example of how that happened and what did occur for that goal to come of itself was Hazard being tasked with too much defensive responsibility in that. So because of that, that's why they look to set up like this, deal with it in a mid-block, and then they'd look to counter out of it, where these guys then had much more freedom to counter, especially because the next player, they only had to beat one guy, which was the center backs, which was ideal for them. They're wingers, they're fast technical players. They're going to mostly beat center backs in the open field. So that was kind of the thinking behind how they counter and how they deal with that in terms of the defending aspect of the play. And that mainly was what we'd see from this Chelsea team. That's kind of how I looked to aim to set up it. That's what I saw, and that's what I kind of took down as notes to deal with this and make this tactic into itself. So, I'm going to now hop over to FM. We'll show the tactic, see how that worked. But that was mainly what we're looking for and what the tactic was and how it was designed in my thinking. All right, guys, we're going to start off just the way Conte did, going from Juve to Chelsea and showing you guys how that progression went. So the tactic test with Juve had them finish in third. They had the third best defense, third best attack, and second best defense in the league. And that's how things worked out. Funnily enough, Weston McKennie got the most assists. He played as the wingback for most of those. Okay, that makes more sense. I was like, what? Because at the end of the season, when I did the last lineup, McKennie played here, and it got me. Okay, so that mainly is the theme. So if we look at who scored the most goals, it was Vlahovic scoring the most as the striker, and then underneath we had Timmy Weah, who played as the right winger for a lot of it, and Chiesa, who played on the left for a lot of it as well. So you can see here mainly the main scores were, surprise, surprise, the three that we're looking at. And then on top of that, we had here Weah, who, again, a decent amount of assists, but McKennie, most of them from the right wing-back positions. You're talking about Kostic, a lot from the left wing-back position. So those guys are your main assisters. Even Cambiasso from the left wing-back position. Oh, from both wing-backs as well. But you can see here exactly what I was talking about in terms of that, where those players from those spots are looking at, even Rabiot picking up some who's playing in the deep lying playmaking role and stuff. So you can just kind of see what I'm talking about in terms of the assists being hit by those right numbers there. Obviously, we can take a look at the... Come on, this glitch needs to stop happening. You can look at the pass maps for us. I mean, you can look how nice it is. Here, look at this. I mean, this is the shape we're looking for. Also, a little odd that Fagioli is so high. I'd assume Locatelli would be the playmaker there, but you can just kind of see how tight these guys are together. The wing back and the winger is really looking to create those overloads and pin those guys back. And you can even see a little bit here in terms of where they were. They're pinned really deep. If we even go, say, look at the heat map for this game, we can see how high up they are and how deep. Look how far back we pinned their defenders here. So far back, these guys are stuck just sitting back in there. We're much higher up. You can see the shape that I was talking about too. The Libero stepping up higher. Weirdly, fun to have the ball-winning midfielders really high up the pitch. But again, that's Conte just running around. But you can see sitting a little deeper, trying to create more from that role, and the Libero stepping up with him as well. So you can see what I'm talking about in the way that we'd look to set things up. But it didn't do too incredible. Third round by Palermo, which is pretty poor. I just don't think it really works too well in this year's game and this year's system, which is unfortunate. But again, this is how it tested. Look, be my guest to critique it and stuff like that. But for me, this is what I felt was the best. Again, it was even supposed to finish second. But this is what, to me, felt like the most realistic tactic for the way Conte played. And again, also, it just might be the teams aren't set up right. Chelsea got fourth on 72 points. They were a game off Liverpool, which is unfortunate. They had the seventh best attack, but the fourth best defense. So again, pretty solid defensively in both times, which was good to see. This time around, we had Chilwell get the most assists and Nkunku get the most goals. Very similar to before. If we actually look, they were supposed to finish sixth. They did overachieve a little bit in terms of that. If we look at competitions, third round by Spurs, fifth by City. Not incredible, but that happens. Oops. Chilwell got the most assists. Then it was Nkunku, surprisingly, but then Madueke, Jackson, and James, which is unsurprising. And even more unsurprising, James is injured. My God. They can't catch a break. But then we look at the players that scored the most. Nkunku, Madueke, Sterling, the wingers. Thiago Silva. This man must have been playing as the Libero. Let's see, did he play as the Libero? No, it's form. No, he played as the central defender. I was going to say, he must have been scoring from... I guess no, he was playing that. Wow, he must have scored off a lot of corners then. That's crazy. But this is the test, is how it came out. Again, it's kind of similar to what I was saying before. Nothing too insane. It's just kind of the same things. Of let's take a look at this. You can see, yeah, similar to what I'm talking about here. Not as nice as the other one, United against Liverpool, but you can see how close these two are to each other in terms of that. Nkunku's a little too high for where I would have wanted him. He wants to be a little tighter, but you can see these two pretty deep here. The Libero stepping up a bit. ball wing defender a bit as well. And you can see how the shape I was talking about, just kind of that shape we're looking for there. Even if we go into this, take a look at the heat maps a bit, I'm sure we'll get a similar thing. Yeah, you can see here. Unfortunately, this didn't seem to pin back their wingers a lot, but I'm guessing their wingers weren't tasked with defending our wingbacks a lot. Or it also led to why they didn't win the game, which could have been the other thing as well. That issue, still getting on the score sheet on top of that. So, but even then, if their fullbacks were looking to attack, they were pinned deep. Look how deep they were pinned as well. So that's another big thing there. It really worked in terms of pinning their players back. They were so deep in their own halves. And both of them got subbed off because they had such poor games. So you have that as well. So it definitely works in terms of some of those aspects we're looking for there. And the things we wanted to see in that sense really did come through. But we'll take a look at the tactic now. The tactic itself, this is it. It is a custom 3-4-3 system on a positive mentality. We have a sweeper keeper on defend in goal with take fewer risks. Courtois did not like to have the ball at his feet. He did not like to pass the ball, but I had take fewer risks. I knew also Courtois would do a little sweeping, nothing major, but he would like to sweep here and there just to help deal with some things. I do have a memory of him getting sent off against Swansea in the opening game of the season, which I did watch, which I was there for in person, which was pretty funny. But he wasn't the best at it, but he did like to do it ever so often, so we have him on that just to help with that. Then we have the Gary Cahill role, which is the central defender on defend, which is the left center back. He is on tackle harder, as Conte wants an aggressive team, so a lot of these guys are on tackle harder. Then we have the Libero role on support. This was your David Luiz player, stepping up into the middle of the pitch, tackle harder, shoot more often, dribble more, and take more risks. As David Luiz did like to play a lot of balls forward, this will encourage him to play passes into these central areas here, bypassing the deep-lying playmaker, looking to get it into the front three as well, which is we're going to hope that will encourage it. I didn't want to put more direct passing on. You can if you want to chase the game and do a little more, but I felt putting that on would encourage him to hit too many long balls and lose the ball too often, or take more risks will be a little more of a smarter play style if he sees something. Now we have the ball-playing defender here, which is Azpilicueta's role. Azpilicueta did take the ball up a little bit in possession at times, which is why we have dribble more on him, and then obviously tackled harder, as Conte wants very aggressive center backs. Now, the Marcos Alonso role was not as advanced as the Victor Moses role, but he'd still like to get forward and support, as he was kind of an all hard work wingback. So, we made him cross at center, as the team would look to cross the ball into the center, usually looking to get into that central area for those cutbacks we talked about. On top of that, he's got closed down more and tackle harder. Now, when the team did have the chance to win the ball back, he would aggressively press those wingers as well as the wingbacks when they came into his area to really close them down and force them to go backwards or slow them down, where he could have support come into them and really help defend properly, which we talked about in those defensive overloads. So that's why that's on. And then tackle harder to suit the Conte style. Now, the same exact roles for this guy, the complete wingback at the right wingback position here. He's got just obviously cross from byline on this as well, but we want roam from position, as they will then roam into the central areas if need be, or just go out wide, which is what we're looking for, as these guys can attack centrally, but also maybe sometimes stay a little wider, which is what we're looking for there. And then he's got cross and byline, as we always want this guy to overlap and cross it from the byline. Now we have the ball-winning midfielder on support. Conte was never trusted in possession and not looked to do much, so is that we have dribble less and shoot less often. Now, obviously, Conte, we do know he could go on those bizarre runs and pull off those bizarre finishes, but they were so far few in between. I felt that limiting that with the position here would allow the role to do those unbelievable things. And when he does do them, he will, but it's going to stop him from trying it too often, and that's what we want to see. And also on support role, meaning he's not hampered down by position, so he can press over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, here. Press anywhere, like all over the pitch, which we want to see. Deep playing playmaker. More direct passes. We saw Matic try to unlock the team with several passes at times. That's what we want him to look for. But otherwise, no additional instructions there. As this perfect spot, he's going to hover around these areas here, maybe tuck in a little bit here or there, not really go too far forward. But if you are looking to chase the game and you do need to get into the game there, you can obviously go to the advanced playmaker on support, or even on attack if you do want, but I suggest support so that he doesn't dribble as much, as his role was mainly designed to get the ball and look to pass it a bit more. So you could do that as well if you're chasing the game and need to get him into these spaces more often. On the right wing, we have the inverted winger On support duty, sit narrower is the only additional instruction. This guy's job was Pedro. He looked to tuck inside here, combine a little bit, and then drive at the goal, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Dribble more and cut inside with the ball. Nothing else really was too key for that role, so there's those three there. On the left is the Eden Hazard role, the inside forward on attack. We obviously want Hazard to dribble more, cut inside, take more risks. We don't want him to cross as much and get further forward as well, looking to really attack and score goals, as he could even pop up as the central striker at times in the system, which is why roam from position is on, the sit narrower and shoot more often, encouraging Hazard to take those shots when they arise. We can see many times in his career, he beats one or two players off the dribble, then fires it in from like 30 yards out, or to edge of the box. We can think of that amazing goal against Tottenham he scored, or some of the others like that, and that's what we want to encourage from this role with the shoot more often. Now, obviously, deep lying forward on attack, we're going to have him hold up the ball a little bit more, which was Costa did, lay it off to people, tackle harder to add that aggression that Costa showed, as well as shoot less often so he gets more players involved and doesn't take those 30-yard screamers, which we know Costa definitely didn't take. So a little bit of that, as well as he's got also move into channels. I don't love take more risks. I don't feel that's his style of play, but I couldn't really get a role that had these things and that all together. But we do have move into channels where he'd move slightly into those channels that I was talking about to help create those overloads, moving into these channels and these areas there to connect with the wingers, as well as if he moves into the channel out wide, you have then Hazard tucking into that space there, which I was mentioning where Hazard could appear in those spots. So those are the roles, those are the reasoning behind each of the individual instructions per those roles as well. Obviously, we talked about it in the explained part. Now, onto the team instructions. You'll have a positive team mentality. In possession, you are going to have a fairly wide in terms of attacking width. You're going to focus play down the left and the right. If you want to, you can have overlap on the right. I felt it wasn't always considered, so I wouldn't put that on. You could do it for either side, but I didn't feel it as important to have those, as that wasn't always what happened. We have shorter passing directness, as the team definitely got more up the pitch via dribbling over anything else, and Matic was one of kind of the key guys that did look to do something via his direct passing, so he's the only one that really has that changed style there. On top of that, the much higher tempo, the team looks to get forward quickly, score attacks as fast as they could, and look to counter before going back to their defensive shape. We also have low crosses on, as a team look to cross the ball and cut back more. Be more disciplined is what I wanted, but I felt that if I had be more disciplined on, it would take away the kind of abilities of some of the more eccentric abilities of some of the players on the pitch. Now, for me, you could do it. That's up to you if you want to, but I don't know. I just felt that it would take away some of the individual expression in terms of the way the game worked. I think Conte would be more disciplined normally, but I don't know. I just felt like that takes away from the individual brilliance of some of the players in this system that you want to get from it, as that's how they did some amazing things. Now, we have team counterpress and counter. Obviously, we want them to counterpress in their mid-block, not directly, but a few players will obviously counterpress. We want them to distribute to the center back and roll it out. We obviously want it primarily to be going to these two players here, but any three could receive it before passing off to the two more important players in possession, so that's fine for any of them to get it. If you are finding that this player here loses the ball, you can adjust it to this, where you are just playing it to the right center back, who is the chief guy in terms of Azpilicueta in possession. And if you're finding you're getting beat too often in the counter or in transition, you can take this off as well, and then 100% put this on, which will help you deal more with those issues. So those are just some things quickly you could do there to adjust it. And finally, the team sets up in a mid-block with a much more often pressing trigger with get stuck in, which really fits that Conte style, and the aggressiveness to close the man down, get in their face, and be really aggressive, as well as trap out wide. So we can hopefully look to create those overloads through these guys, as well as funnel the ball defensively through our wingbacks, who will look to dictate how we play, pushing the player off to the center back or pressing them themselves and using the wingers coming back to create those overloads to assist them. So that's the tactic. That is our Conte Conte league-winning tactic in the EPL. Hope you guys did enjoy that and kind of see where I came from, see how I adjusted everything and how I made this into what I was looking at. If you have any questions or anything else or comments, let me know. Obviously, I'm not a Chelsea fan, so I didn't watch them as much as many others did. This is kind of me watching some other clips and stuff like that on YouTube and other people talking about the team. So this is what I felt best suited, in my opinion. Now, feel free to let me know if there's things you think should change or any suggestions. I'd love to hear them and help refine this tactic to work. But in the end, I don't think this one that seems to totally work in FM. I think you need to tweak it a little bit to suit the FM meta right now, which is feeling like this year especially, don't get me wrong, it feels like this year more especially than ever, the high press is really overpowered, and not high pressing is going to hurt you. So again, that's kind of the success where I found the best tactics that overachieve and really do a lot of good need to be high press. You can get by, obviously, with my Union Berlin save we saw. I did well with a low block, but it struggled at times. So I think you'll have to see. But this, I think it could work a little better with some tweaking, but this is what I felt matches how Conte played, and that's what we're going for today. If you want to tweak it to better suit the engine, I suggest you do, and if you do let me know what you did. I'd love to hear what you guys tried, as well as how it worked for you guys as well. So, thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you want to catch up on more tactic videos or more things like that, do feel free to do so in the description below. If you guys want a more tactic requests or anything, so that drop them in the comments. I'll let you guys know when I can get those done for you guys, and I'm excited to keep on making more tactics for you guys. Once again, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and I'm sure to catch you guys in the next tactic video.